All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast real estate tip, where every single week I come to you delivering different tips, tactics, and strategies to help you get shit done inside your real estate business and help ensure that you are crushing and dominating your overall real estate goals. All right, so for today's podcast, it's been a minute since I've done one of these, but I wanted to talk about the overall real estate market, the overall economy, what things are looking like, where we are heading, giving my overall predictions of this stuff. But then most importantly, making sure that you are prepared and know what to do to go out there and succeed, regardless of what this market does. Because at the end of the day, the market does not dictate your success. I want you to understand this because it's really important. Now, we need to be prepared for it in order to be able to dictate our own success. But the market itself does not dictate your success. You and you alone do. But it's important to understand these things that we're going to be talking about today. So then we know how to shift and adapt and grow and what moves to make accordingly. If you look at my almost 20 years of doing this, being in the real estate business since 2005, every single year, my business has been able to grow. My own personal real estate business has been able to grow year over year, and doing it at high volume. I'm not just, somebody that's out there just popping a couple units a year. I've become one of the top realtors and team leaders on the planet, voted 30 top realtor in America by the Wall Street Journal. We move a lot of units. I've done over 7,000 home sales now, over $2 billion of real estate sold. So my business has been able to grow continually year after year, regardless of the marketplace, because I pay attention. I pay attention to key indicators of what's going on with the economy, what's going on with the consumer, what's going on with the market. And it allows me to go out there and pivot and make those necessary adjustments a lot of times well ahead of time before my competitors are. Things that I'm already doing right now, it's not even most people's radars right now. Now I want to make sure it's on your radar, make sure that you're prepared. It's like during the great financial crisis. I was already aligned with short sales and aligned within 35 different banks and outsourcers and asset managers, so when the market crashed and everybody else started freaking out, not knowing what to do, I was already set up. Same thing right now with this market where we're there's key performance indicators that we see with what's going on with the market, what's going on with the economy, to be able to pay attention to and adjust and adjust our business accordingly. Now, one thing that's really important as I get into this, a couple of things that are really important is, number one, you need to learn to remove your own confirmation biases. So it's so easy for our minds to become biased. So then when we're looking at information and we're just trying to confirm our own biases and we have our own deep internal convictions. Look, if you want to get good at this and you want to continue growing and scale your business regardless, you need to get away from these, internal convictions. You need to get away from, you have to have aware of what what confirmation biases that you have and make sure that you're holding a neutral perspective. Yeah, right. Like there's so many people right now, they're like, oh, this market is not going to crash. Then there's so many people, 100% it's going to, and they get so sold on this thing. For me, it's like, hey, I don't care what it's going to do. I mean, I've got my ways that I would prefer it to play out. However, I understand that the markets, the economies, real estate, much bigger than me. I cannot control the market. So I'm neutral. I don't have, whichever way it goes, I don't allow myself to have biases for it. So then when I'm reading the KPIs, the different indicators, right, when I'm neutral with it, right, I'm able to just see the data for what it is and prep and plan accordingly. And I don't allow myself to get stifled because of my ego or whatever else. So you need to remove your confirmation bias, because then a lot of times when we're seeking information, we are just looking at the information that just confirms our own internal convictions, our own internal biases. And I'm not saying to not have certain strong convictions in your life, certain belief systems that you hold on to that you're very convicted on. Like, look, there's certain parts of our life where maybe those are good things to go out there and have. I'm talking about when it comes to business, right? Like when you're Blockbuster and you're like, oh no, people are always going to go to the video store. They're like, and then you don't make the moves. And the next thing you know, boom, you become extinct, right? So we want to be neutral. It's just, hey, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm going to be willing to shift, adjust, and adapt regardless of what happens and be good to go, right? So we got to be operating from that state. Then from there, the second thing that I want to go through here, I already talked about this a little bit, but understand that success is internal. It's never external. So it's not the market. It's not the president. It's not the interest rates. None of that dictates your success. Your actions alone dictate your success. So never allow yourself to hide behind the market. I'm not going to give you permission to do that, because it's just bullshit. So if your business is down right now, it's not because of the economy. It's not because of the market. It's not because of interest rates. It's because you have not chosen to adapt accordingly and make the right corrections and the right adjustments. And you're just not doing the work. It's just that simple, right? And I'm not trying to be a jerk here. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm working hard. Okay, you probably are. You probably are working hard. You're just working on the wrong shit. You haven't made the right adjustments, right? There is no such thing as a good market or a bad market. The market's always good for somebody's real estate professionals that's at the highest level, our job to identify whom the market is good for and then shift, adapt, and pivot accordingly. So we're putting our focus, our attention, our marketing, and so forth to where those opportunities are at. But we have to have, if you want to go out there and have a thriving career for a long, for the rest of your career for a long period of time, you have to get good at reading the markets, and so I'm going to walk you through. And the reason why I'm bringing this up right now, some of this stuff, it's easy when you start looking at some of this stuff to get kind of down, to get kind of depressed, to get, whatever. But look, I'm not trying to be a fear porn guy. I'm not trying to be chicken little sky is falling guy. Like, I'm very optimistic. I'm excited about this market. I have every ounce of intention of making sure that 2024 is my best year yet. And I want it to be your best year yet, but look, I don't look at this stuff as good or bad. It just is what it is. What do I need to, like, these are just the cards that have been dealt in the poker game, man. Like, okay, how am I going to best play this hand to go out there and freaking murder it and crush my goals regardless? All right. So real quick, before I get into some of the things going on here, and then most importantly, how to go out there and pivot and prepare and adjust and what to be focusing on to ensure that you crush it. So real quick, before we jump into that, look, if you are a real estate agent, if you are a team leader, if you are a brokerage owner, maybe your business is declining, maybe it's stagnant, maybe it's growing, just not growing at the pace that you want. It's like you're operating down here, but your potential is way up here, and you just do not know exactly what you need to do to get from where you're at to where you want to go. I invite you to schedule a 100% free, 100% zero pressure coaching strategy Zoom call with me personally. So on this Zoom call, it's going to be an hour-long call with just you and I. And what we're going to do during this coaching session is we're going to break down where your business is currently at, what your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals are and visions for your real estate career are, what you're currently doing, what your biggest obstacles are. And once I've gathered that information, then I'm going to map out exactly what I recommend that you do to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable manner possible. So it's kind of like, hey, man, if we switch places, if I'm you and I'm in your situation, boom, here's exactly what I would do to go out there and crush it and make sure that you hit your goals and your goals become a reality. I will make sure by the end of this hour-long coaching Zoom call together that when you leave this call, you're going to know exactly what you must do to make your goals a reality. Now, full disclosure, at the very end of the coaching call, I'm going to spend about 5-10 minutes, depending on how many questions that you have. Spend a few minutes though walking through some possible coaching options that I may have for you that might help you get there quicker. And look, if it's for you, great. If not, that's okay too. We can still be friends. I will still make sure that this coaching call is extremely valuable to you, whether you ever do any element of coaching business with me or not. Everything I do is extremely no pressure. I'm not going to beg you. I'm not going to make you feel guilty. I'm not going to ask you to whip out a credit card. Look, if it's for you, cool. If not, that's okay too. I will still make sure you have my word on this. I will still make sure that this is an extremely valuable, effective coaching call for you. Look, my one-on-one coaching consulting rate is $1,000 an hour. I'm offering this to you right now for free. So if you're struggling and you're not where you want to be and you want my help, I guarantee you, I will be able to walk you through exactly what to do to get from where you're at to where you want to go, give you that clarity that you need. And this is your opportunity to get this for free. So if this is something you want to take advantage of, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call, www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. All right, so let's just jump on into what we are seeing right now with the overall economy, with the overall real estate market. Okay, look, I understand interest rates are coming down. And I'm seeing all over social media and having talks with agents and seeing their posts of, oh, well, the worst is over. Interest rates are coming down. It's getting so good. Look, and we don't know how temporary these interest rates are going to be down. Right? And when I say this is, how are mortgage interest rates set? They are set based on purchasers of mortgage-backed securities. What is the biggest competitor to the MBS's mortgage-backed securities is the 10-year yield, the 10-year treasury bond, right? So then with that, when we look at the yield curve with the overall yield curve right now, it is so insanely inverted. So which is unhealthy. That means like shit isn't bad. It's been the most accurate predictor of recessions, depressions, whatever you want to call these, for the last, 50, 60 years since this, this indicator is been an inception. It's been the most accurate indicator for hard times to come. So it's extremely inverted. What does that inversion mean? What is it? So a healthy yield curve would be, okay, like if I'm going to go out there and buy treasury bonds, and I'm investing in, a 3-month treasury bond, and I'm tying up my money for 3 months or 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, or 5 years or 10 years or 30 years. Yeah, right. Well, okay, like, dude, third, or the 3-month bond, would usually typically pay less interest than if I'm giving my money to the government, letting them tie it up for 10 years. Yeah, right. The inversion is okay, like when you look at that, the 3-month yield, and I should have wrote them down. You can go to, CNN, what's it, CNN, money market or whatever, and see the yield curve, something I check each and every day. But like it's massively inverted where, okay, you make way more money on your return by investing in a 3-month, treasury bond than you do a 10-year bond. So for this to revert, to a healthy bond, I mean, that would mean that the 10-year yield needs to go up. So either the shorter yields on the curve need to crash, right? Or and if we look at historic corrections, the 10-year yield needs to come up a couple percent. So then from there, the higher that yield on the 10-year yield, the less demand there is for mortgage-backed securities, right? And then let me just say this: one of the reasons, or not the one of the reasons, the single reason why interest rates were so insanely low. So if you were waiting for interest rates to get down to, essentially free like they were for so long, the reason they were so low is you had the Federal Reserve stepping in, buying $90 billion a month of mortgage-backed securities. They became the only single buyer, really, during the pandemic. And so that's why it just artificially shot interest rates to the lowest levels that we've ever seen. So that's the first time in history that's ever taken place, that's ever happened. So the probability of that happening again is extremely low. So I don't know how low these are going to get, but they might, we'll see. That's, but the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is I'm not one that's going to sit there and say, oh, well, in the high interest rates are over. This is done. We're out of the woods. No, man. I mean, there's just so much manipulation going on right now. Like I wouldn't be shocked if all of a sudden mortgage rates move their way back up to 10%. I wouldn't be shocked if they go down to 5% or if they go up to 10%. Like it's just good. Like there's so much manipulation. There's so much shit going on right now. There's just so many things that the Fed and US Treasury is doing to, departments are doing to go out there and kick this can down the road and do everything they can to barely hang on by a thread, and so forth. But even though we got mortgage rates coming down, right now, this is according to Mortgage Bankers Association as of yesterday. So this is 2024 data already. Okay, mortgage applications are down to their lowest levels since the mid 1990s. So even though interest rates are coming down, we got mortgage demand, buyer demand down. It's still falling off of a cliff. And so many think that transaction volume is down just because of the unaffordability of real estate. Now, that's part of the equation, but that's not the whole equation. The whole equation, we got to look at the whole equation here, right? So it's not just that it is the or close to the most unaffordable time to go out there and acquire real estate in U.S. recorded history. In addition to that, it's the most unaffordable time to be alive in U.S. recorded history. There's never been a time, and since 1776, since recorded, in history, since the inception of the United States, where it's been more expensive to just be alive as a citizen in the U.S., right? So even if mortgage rates got extremely low or prices started coming down and real estate got more affordable, there's still going to be a hell of a lot less than there used to be number of people that are able and willing to transact in the real estate market, because people, like the average consumer, can barely freaking hang on right now. Yeah, right. And it's not even that they're barely able to hang on; they're not hanging on. When you look at the record rate of evaporation of savings rate, and then the record rate of consumer debt just skyrocketing right now, that is evidence and proof that people just cannot hang on. And now we're told, now this is the dangerous part about this. We're told, meaning, okay, we go out there and we get these CPI numbers. Oh, and we're being told right now that, the Fed won the CPI war and inflation fight is over. Okay, well, life today is easily double, if not, close to triple, but it's easily a double. It's twice as, so essentially $1 pre-COVID is now worth 50 cents. Right. So life is over double. So when they're like, oh, the inflation war is done, I'm like, no, dude, like you got to go combat all this shit. Like, we just had the most rapid, a cost of life increase that we've seen, over the past, 3-4 years. It's been out of this freaking world. Right. But when we just got to understand how CPI is so manipulated. Right. So during the Clinton administration, they changed up how these CPI calculations, inflation, essentially inflation is calculated. So now they can manipulate the numbers so massively. And the reason being is because this is how they have to adjust Social Security. Well, we already know that our government's bankrupt. They're running a $3 trillion negative deficit every single year. They've increased their debt by $1 trillion in just the last 15 weeks alone. Right. So, and we'll get into that here in a minute, but scary shit, right? Like it's out of freaking control, right? So, okay, we've got this, we got, what, a $35 trillion, balance sheet for the U.S. Treasury Department. Now that's on record balance sheet debt. Then as far as off balance sheet debt, other off balance liabilities, the true debt is probably around 150 trillion. Right. So when we look at Social Security, now we know that at current rate, Social Security is due to run out in about 2036. Well, how they have to adjust Social Security is based off these CPI numbers. So they manipulate the absolute and utter shit out of these to keep it super low. Right. So and you might be like, oh, Josh, get your tinfoil hat off. You're just speaking conspiracy talk right now. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, we're being told that, CPI inflation is up 3%. So life only got 3% more expensive in the last 12 months. Okay, just do a realistic audit in your own life. Look at how much your insurance went up, your utility bills went up, your grocery bills went up. You're out of your fucking mind if you think that life only went up 3%. Inflation today is probably closer to 15%, year over year, what we're actually realistically experiencing. And this is going to be here for a long time to come. Because the Federal Reserve is going to do everything they possibly can, and the powers that be will do everything they possibly can to battle a deflationary recession or deflationary depression, because that's the opposite of what they want. They'd rather have inflation all day long versus deflation, and they're going to do everything that they can to avoid that. Not to say that it's not a probability, because it could happen. But we just know they continue to do everything they possibly can to battle this, and every move that they are doing right now is highly, highly inflationary. So when we look at inflation, right, let's first talk about GDP growth. So again, we're told that, the economy's doing good. We keep, GDP keeps increasing. There's 3 ways to increase GDP, gross domestic product. All right. Number one, you have to have population growth rate, right? So as far as, positive birth rates going up and up and up every single year. Well, right now that's negative, right? So the average, U.S. couples having 1.66 kids per couple. Replacement rate is like 2.16. So we're below replacement rate. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but human beings now are apply for the endangered species list, right? We are at a massive inflection point where in 3 to 4 generations right now, the world population will be about 1/10 of the size that it is right now when we look at the decline of birth rates on a global level. You hear Elon Musk talk about this all the time. Is one of the biggest kind of threats to humanity is the massive fall off on overall birth rates, that we are seeing. So, okay. So number one, a GDP growth, that's out the window. Okay. Number two, to go out there and grow GDP is through productivity per worker. We are now experiencing here in the United States the lowest productivity per worker ever to exist since this KPI has been recorded, or this metric has been recorded, in the history of our country. So the lowest it's ever been, right? So, okay, productivity per worker out the window, birth rates out the window, right? So there's only a third way to grow GDP, which is through debt, which is through money printing, through monetization of debt. And that is where we are at. All of this growth that we are seeing year over year and have since 2007 is artificial. I want you to understand this. I want you to know this, because if you don't understand this, you don't know this, then you think it's just sunshine and rainbows. Shit is good. If we remove, so if you look at the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, U.S. Treasury balance sheet, Federal Reserve's balance sheet has grown by 10x since 2007. In the U.S. government by over 3x. Right, getting close to 4x since 2007. If it wasn't for all of this artificial money, all of this money printing and monetization of debt and stimulus, we'd be in a 17+ year long depression, right? Like the longest, craziest depression that our country's ever seen. So all of this is artificial, right? So then from there, it's just like, okay, at some point the music has to stop. Or we just experience hyperinflation. Like at some point, it's going to stop, right? Either we go through a deflationary depression and we have to go through a lot of pain to for things to get better, or we're going to experience crazy hyperinflation, or they're going to have to reset the system altogether. Those are kind of our three options right now. But if you look at the moves that the Federal Reserve and the federal government are taking, right, they are choosing to go the inflation route. So again, we got a U.S. government that is going $3 trillion deficit per year. You got states like California that are now, hey, we're going to offer, free healthcare to, illegal immigrants coming in, and I'm not saying these are, I'm not here to debate politics here. That's not, to me, I'm just like, I'm neutral on this shit. I'm just, hey, what's going on? How do I adapt for it? And yeah, I mean, I have my own belief systems and my own political views and whatnot, but this isn't a political based podcast. This is a business based podcast, right? So when I'm looking at this stuff, I'm not saying these things are good or bad. It just is what it is, but with the geopolitical goals and moves that our country is making, plus with all the social programs that our government chooses to make and chooses to do, with the expansion that they're choosing to grow, all of these things are extremely highly inflationary. When you are printing money, and we are now at the point where, just the interest on our government's debt is now exceeded military spending, and it is getting close to being the highest thing on their balance sheet. And what a debt spiral is when the government gets to a point where they got to print money just to pay the interest on their debt, because getting to the point where like tax money doesn't cover the just the interest on their debt, right? So they got to print money just to keep expanding this. It's called a debt spiral, right? And this is how world reserve currencies collapse, right? And I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm not, but it's a probability that, is not too far off in the near future if shit doesn't get under control and change. But the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is every move that is happening, when you're printing money, you pull money out of the future, you pull it into now, extremely highly inflationary. Why do you think that life is up 40, 50% or more, just since, early 2020? So between 2020 and 2022, during the pandemic, 40% of every dollar to ever exist in existence in U.S. recorded history was created and made during that time. Well, it's kind of weird. But people go like, oh, well, dude, when you print money, it doesn't create inflation. Okay, well, you printed 40% of all money to ever exist during that 2-year time. And then is it just a coincidence that life went up 40% in that amount of time too? That's kind of odd. Like if it doesn't create inflation, like, oh, supply chain issues. Okay, well, now supply chain issues are kind of fixed. Like shit's still skyrocketing. Like what's, it's just all highly inflationary things, right? So the reason why I bring this up is when we already have the average person getting crushed under the current environment that we're in, but things are continuing to get more and more expensive. Life continues to get more and more expensive. It's going to continue to create more and more hardships. It's going to be less and less people that can acquire real estate, less and less people that can hold on to their real estate, less and less, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this up is I just believe that this is going to be a very low volume transaction environment for some time to come, and could be years and years. This might just be the new normal, right? Okay. So then from there, we got manufacturing numbers way down right now. You got job openings way down right now. Now, if you remove, so it's like all the job growth, and again, all that GDP growth is through government spending and government created jobs. Right. So all these numbers get merged together. So when you hear, oh, the job market is strong, GDP growth is strong, dude, it's all based on, government spending, government growth of new government jobs, contracted jobs to the government. It's all government ran and based, right? When you separate the, non-government, industry outside of that, it's like they're just getting murdered and crushed right now. Right. Okay. So then from there, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you got 1 out of 6 homeowners right now that currently can't even pay their utility payments. You got 25,000 daily auto repossessions taking place each and every single day right now, a record that we've never come close to seeing before. You got 3% of all mortgage holders on single family detached properties. There's 85 million mortgages, 12 million HELOCs throughout the United States. You got about 3% of all of them currently in 30 plus days default right now in their mortgages. So again, when we look at the stagflationary environment that we're going on, what does stagflation mean? Okay, that means you got crazy inflation going on, but you don't have wages keeping up with inflation. So it's a stagflation environment, right? So the cost of life is increasing at a much more rapid rate than consumers can keep up with. So you got consumer debt growing about 1.3% per quarter, and savings being absolutely evaporated. And I'm sure probably exists at some point. I can't find any graphs, charts about it. What we're seeing, at the savings rate decline rate, and then the acceleration of consumer debt rate. I've never seen those two at this crazy of a rate. And I can't find any evidence of any other time that we're seeing that. Okay, you got tenant evictions up 54% from pre-pandemic levels. You got domestic travel falling off of a cliff. All right, so we already talked about inflation being here to stay for a long time. My best guess is, probably the next 10 years. Like, we're going to be in this environment for a long freaking time until it's going to take something severe to correct this in the other way. Yeah, right. And who knows what that thing could be. All right, so even if more, and the reason why I'm bringing this stuff up is because even if mortgage rates drop significantly, my prediction is we're still going to be in a much lower transaction volume market than we are accustomed to, right? Because all this other shit, this is the other picture that people aren't paying attention to, of all this inflation and just the cost of life. So many in our industry just get so caught up on, oh, well, really, once real estate prices come down and, there's going to be a slew of buyers coming in the place. I'm like, look, dude, the average consumer is just fucking broke and crushed. And, and it's tough out there, man. So when they barely afford life, it's like, how are they going to be able to afford to go out there and buy? Right. And then from there, okay, well, are people going to be able to, I've been saying this for years now, we're now starting to see it, like with my agents and here on the podcast, with my coaching clients. I've been prepping everybody for this inflation for about over 4 years now of, hey guys, this is coming. This is coming. Be ready for it. Be ready for it. And like I've been telling them, there's going to come a time where people are going to have to make that decision on putting food on the table for them and their families, or making their mortgage payment. And we're seeing this. Now, are we going to see this in 2024? No. I mean, there's so many whispers out there of, because it's an election year, putting a moratorium again on foreclosures. And, but we're seeing a big increase in NODs, notice of default, short sales. Like when I say that, like meaning, me and my coaching clients going after these because it's such a hot niche right now to go after. Okay. When I say all of this though, I don't know how ugly this is going to get. I don't know how extreme this is going to get, because we are now in a world, and have been for the last, several decades, of manipulation. It's like, okay, we're playing a game. Maybe we're playing, I don't really watch sports, but maybe we're playing a football game, but then now all of a sudden we got these refs that jump in, and they trip players, and they cheat, and they make their, false calls, and they're trying to manipulate the outcome. Right. So we got this playing field that's just so heavily manipulated now. So it's like an impossibility to go out there and predict, what's going to take place. Right. So I don't know if and when this thing's going to bust. I mean, all I know is things correct. Things have a way of, the pendulum swings back and forth. Now it looks like instead of a pendulum, maybe it's more of a wrecking ball, but either way, it's going to create the same result. Right. So if things were to crash, hardcore, and have a deflationary depression, okay, that's just ripping the Band-Aid off faster, or if they, keep kicking, the powers that be kicking the can down the road, as they continue to do, and have been doing for several decades now, and continue to, but it's getting harder and harder. They're having to make bigger and bigger moves, and it's also creating bigger and bigger side effects, but either way, it's going to be pain for the average person, right? So, probably leads to the same result. It's just one's a slightly slower way, one's a faster way to get there. Like me personally, I wish they would just stop all the manipulation, just let the markets do what the markets are going to do, like we could just go back to just real capitalism. We don't have real capitalism anymore, right? It's, in this, fascistic, corporatocracy, right now, where there's just so much manipulation with that, so we'll see how this thing shakes out, but with all that being said, I'm not trying to make this doom and gloom, even though it's like, dude, I when I look at this, okay, looks to me like the powers that be want us, me, you, all the general, population out there, they want us broke. They want us dumb. They want us sick, right? So we then have to be that much more reliant on them. And even though the powers that be want that, and they're doing everything they can to go out there and control that and make that happen, look, the cool part about this is you have a choice. I have a choice. So we're talking about all this inflation right now. Okay, if I know that, okay, inflation is, let's just say it's 10% year over year for the next 10 years. I just got to make sure that my income, my business, and you and I are in an industry where we can control our own income, is increasing by over 10% year over year. Or better yet, make sure that your business is increasing 20% year over year. So you're able to grow your own quality of life by 10% and double pace, inflation. So your quality of life doesn't need to be impacted, right? So we are blessed to be in a career where you and I get to pick and choose our own income. Then from there, as I said earlier, you pick and choose your success, right? The market does not dictate your success. Now, I want to know all of this stuff so I can be prepared. What's best case, what's worst case. Let me have a plan in place, for both. Like a lot of people are like, oh, the market's not going to crash. That's just freaking stupid talk. Hey, look, I don't know if it's going to crash or not. When I look at this, I'm like, hey, there's a lot of things that I can see that could easily lead this into a crash. There's things that I could see that just lead this into continuing the path that we're on right now, which is just, like just crushing it where, the average person, can never afford a home and has to become a renter's nation. And, Wall Street becomes our landlords, which is what, BlackRock and the powers that be would like. And that's what they want. And, it looks like it's all part of this great reset agenda, all this crazy shit that we're seeing out there. I don't know. I don't know how, which way this is going to plan out. I'm just going to have a plan for each different way that it plays out. Right. But the cool part is you and I get to dictate and choose where we end up personally within our own real estate business. Right. So then with that coming into play, right. So when I look at this and I assess this stuff again, like I said, okay, I'm basing on this. Like I look at 2024 being another, strong inflationary year. So okay, 10% like life is going to be at least 10% more expensive, or get 10% more expensive. So that means that it's going to get less affordable for most people to go out there and acquire, buy and sell real estate and just afford life. So I'm expecting 2024 to be a very low volume transaction year, just like 2023 was. Lower level of listings, lower level of overall, buy side closings. And we'll see how many agents still make it in the industry, because what we're seeing right now, and one of the differences between like the great financial crisis was during the great financial crisis, we didn't have all this gig work. We didn't have Uber. We didn't have, so right now, okay, like agents could go out there, drive Uber. They could, do DoorDash. They can go drive Amazon and then still keep their license, do that gig work, get by, have a dual career. So then when they get some of those buyers, sellers, family members, whatever, it's still removing transactions out of the market, for those of us that are full-time, whatever. So, regardless, I know we hear shit like, oh, there's 70,000 agents that left the industry and, 2020, that's such a little tiny amount. Look at the amount still getting licensed, coming in, there's still about 1.6 million realtors. So right now, when we look at the overall economic picture, at or close to the most unaffordable time to go out there and acquire real estate in U.S. recorded history, the most unaffordable time to be alive, hands down, in United States recorded history. And then in our industry, it's the most competitive time that's ever existed since inception of NAR stats. We've never seen a more competitive market, like meaning the number of listings versus the number of transactions versus the number of actual agents in the marketplace. So how do we position ourselves to go out there and crush it in a climate like this? All right. So number one, you got to make sure that you are playing offense, not defense, right? So when I say playing defense, that is you being passive. That is you waiting for deals to come to you. That's waiting for past client repeat referral business to come to you, waiting for friends and family, be like, oh, hey, Joey, we're ready to go out there and buy and sell. Yeah, right. That's you going out there, maybe, putting leads in your system, but just waiting on automation, hoping and praying that they reach out to you. And look, that shit might have worked 2012 through 2022, because that was the craziest economic expansion time that we've ever seen in our lifetimes or in U.S. recorded history. So you could go out there and be passive, play defense. There's enough low hanging fruit, where you could get by with that and go out there and make multiple six figures. That is gone now. Right. So now we got, there's lesser people buying, lesser people selling, same amount of realtors, right? We got to play offense. Like we got to have that offensive strategy. Playing offense, and by offense, I mean every single day. Like, what is my intentional plan to put deals together? Hey, man, I got all these leads in my system that are on all these drips and automation in my CRM. I'm not waiting for them to raise their hand saying, oh, hey, I'm finally ready to buy. No, it's like, what am I doing today to go out there and put these deals together? What am I intentionally doing today to go out there and have these conversations, put these deals together? So number one, you got to shift from offense or from defense to offense. Right. So this is you every day hitting your daily KPIs. Maybe every single day you need to hit 100 dials, 10 conversations. Let's just say if you're wanting to go out there and list 4 homes a month, to go out there and make 30, 40 grand a year. Okay. Those are about the numbers that you got to hit, so you got to switch from defense to playing offense. Then from there, you got to make sure that you have the right strategy in play. Right. So this is a market of needs, not wants. You got to target those that need to buy and sell, not those that want to buy and sell. There's an abundance of people that want to buy and sell. But again, we've eliminated about 50% of the general population that typically would be able to participate in the real estate market that can't right now. So like, okay, there's a lot of homeowners that would love to go out there and sell and buy something new. But, 2/3 of homeowners right now are locked in at 4% lesser interest rates. Like they ain't giving up the 3% interest rate. Okay. So like a ineffective strategy for me right now is to go out there and circle prospect. It's a fucking, waste of time right now. Now you can go out there and just grind it all day long, every day, day in and day out, and go out there and pop some deals that way. But that's very inefficient and ineffective, in this type of a climate that we are in. You got to understand that sales is just pain and pleasure. Who's experiencing the pain, the current real estate situation, they want out of that pain, they want to get to pleasure. The more pain that somebody's experiencing, the more need, the more urgency that they have. Right. We need to identify those that have the most pain, those that have the most urgency to get, and then we got to articulate, we're the best guide to get them from pain to pleasure. So strategy is, okay, identifying those with the deepest pain, the people that need, not want. Then from there, playing offense is, what am I doing to go out there and get those deals to happen? I'm not waiting for it to come to me. I'm going after them. Right. That's what we're talking about, an offensive strategy. So, here's some examples. Right. If I'm going after listings right now, okay, you got expires, FSBOs. I don't necessarily know their pain, but I know that they're willing to sell right now. So boom, great, niche, always has been, always will be, and it is right now. Then from there, okay, I got investors. I know investors are getting crushed right now. Investors that own these properties, so your single family, detached, long-term buy and holds, your short-term vacation rentals, or secondary, absentee owners, all of those, are great sub niches in the investor category to go after and get listings, because you got tenant evictions up 54%. You got rents coming down. You got taxes going up, insurance going up, HOAs going up, cost of maintenance going up. Just pain. Right? They want to sell at or close to peak pricing, but do so before they continue losing more money. Boom! Now is an opportune time. Okay, we talked about this one earlier, but you got NODs, short sales, right? So people that are 30 plus days, not always short sales. About half of them are equity sales that we're seeing right now. The other half are short sales. But dude, you got over 3 million people throughout the US right now that 30 plus days late on their mortgage. Like, why aren't you reaching out to those people, seeing how you can help them? If they don't sell, they need to sell. They need to sell fast. Otherwise, their bad situation is going to get a hell of a lot worse if they don't sell. Okay, boom, that's a niche I'm going to go after. Yeah, right. Okay, those going through divorce. It's a sad fact of life. When tougher economic times hit, financial hard times hit, divorces start going up. Okay, going after those going through. Like, that's what I mean by having an effective strategy of those that need to sell. And by need, who has the highest probability of needing to buy and sell, in this given climate that we are in. So we got to switch from defense to playing offense. And then we got to make sure our strategies are on point. Now, that's not enough, right? That's step number one. Step number two is making sure that you have the right process in place to make sure that you are converting at the highest possible level. Because like I said earlier, all this low-hanging fruit has dried up, right? So now we cannot waste. Like, we have to do everything that we possibly can to maximize our overall conversions. We got to maximize opportunities. So you got to make sure your process game is in place. By process, I mean, what you're doing, when you're doing it, where you're doing it. Yeah, right. Like that is going to be, so an example of this, okay, when I'm calling expireds, I know that 90% of expireds do not relist in the first 3 months, 10% relist in the first 3 months, 90% relist between, month 4 and that 2-year mark. So am I just going to fall, day one? No, I'm going to have a different process than that, right? So I'm going to follow up, aggressively out of the gate, but then I got to have a long enough timeline of a process to follow up to be able to convert those at a high level. Yeah. Right. So like in my across the board, what I call my no time frame established follow-up process is I'm going to call them day one, then every other day for 14 days and every 21 days for the first year. That exists till I get them on the phone, right? Objective of conversation number one, or the highest level objective of conversation number one, is to establish their timeline, establish their goals, going for the appointment, if appropriate. And if I'm unable to get the appointment, or if it's not appropriate, then to establish, now that I know their goals and their timeline, then now what does my follow-up process need to be to maximize conversions? Yeah, right. So we got to have the right strategy, then the right process. Strategies, who we are targeting. Our process is, okay, what we are doing, when we are doing it, where we are doing it, how, then the third portion of this is your skill set. So skill set is, how good are we at doing the thing, right? So the skill set is, how good am I when I'm reaching out to these people on the phones? How good am I at navigating these conversations? How good am I at my listing presentation, buyer consultation? Yeah, right. Like, all three of these must come together. Like right now, the vast majority of our industry has such low level skill set, and I almost think that, during the pandemic, something happened where a lot of people lost the ability to go out there and have effective conversations. Man, it's like people are awkward right now. People are, so it's like, dude, like we're hitting expired stars, seeing the highest conversions I've ever seen in my almost 20 years of doing this all across the board. whether it be buyer leads, seller leads, inbound, outbound. Like I've never seen conversion rates like this. And it's weird to me because I'm like, okay, we got lesser transactions, we got lesser listings, we got more, more agents. Like this shouldn't be happening, but it's happening. Yeah, right. Like again, just blowing up with the conversion rates, right? And this is my hypothesis on this. But because everybody's skill set is so damn low in our industry, they never had to acquire the skill sets, or they forgot how to do it, or maybe during the pandemic, people lost the ability of how to go out there and have effective conversations. They don't understand the consumer at a high level. They haven't spent the time to, invest in learning human behavior, different things. Like they never became good salespeople. They never, like, so then from there, it's like, dude, it's just like fish with freaking dynamite, man. We're talking like 6% conversions on expires and shit like this, right? Like crazy, mind blowing things that, I never thought I'd see these kind of numbers, but we're seeing them now. So when I say this, like I was talking about earlier of, I'm not trying to make this all doom and gloom, right? Like, look, it's just, this is the reality of the environment. How do I need to shift my overall approach based on the new environment that we stepped into, right? And you can still go out there and slay it. So just make sure that you are making the necessary adjustments with your overall strategy, with your overall process, with your overall skill set. You dial those in and you get those right. Boom, you will crush it and just go out there and dominate regardless of what we are seeing in the overall market. Now, again, if you don't know what you are doing, you don't know how to get to, from where you're at to where it is that you want to go, you're stuck and you just don't know exactly what to do. I invite you to schedule a 100% free, zero pressure coaching Zoom call with me personally. This is going to be a 1 hour long Zoom call with you and I. We're going to break down where your business is at, what your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals and visions are, what you are currently doing, what your biggest obstacles are. And I'm going to map out, hey, man, if I'm you, if we were to swap places, here's exactly what I would do step by step to get from where you're at to where you want to go in the most effective, efficient, profitable, profitable way possible to go out there and dominate. I'm going to make sure that you leave this hour-long coaching Zoom call with knowing exactly what you need to do to get from where you're at to where you want to go. So you know what to go out there and execute on and what you need to go out there and do. Now, look, if you don't take advantage of this and you are struggling, like, I don't know what else to do, man. I'm giving you the lifeline right now. It's like you're drowning in quicksand. I see you. I'm throwing you the rope. You got to grab that rope though, and I'll pull you out. But if you choose to not grab the rope and choose to go out there and drown, that's your fault, nobody else's fault, right? So I highly encourage you to schedule this with me. Do everything I do, zero pressure. Yes, at the very end of this, I'm going to walk you through a little bit about my coaching program, what it entails, how it works. If it's for you, great. If not, that's okay too. Everything I do, zero pressure. I'm not going to make you feel guilty, feel bad. I'm not going to beg you. If it's cool, if it's if you want to roll together, cool. If not, that's okay too. I promise you, I will make sure that you know exactly what to do to get from where you're at to where you want to go, whether you never do business with me or not. I will make sure that this is extremely valuable for you. Now, with these, I can't do these forever. I'm booking up fast, man. I'm booking up to about 4 hours, between 3 and 4 hours a day right now with these calls. And I love them. I enjoy them. I want to do everything I possibly can to help all, my amazing GSD mode, listeners and supporters of this podcast and ensure that you are crushing your business. So I'm going to do these as long as I possibly can, but it's definitely not something I can do forever. So if you want to take advantage of this, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. All right, I hope you guys found this valuable. Keep crushing it and go out there and dominate the market. It's your choice. The market is yours if you want it to be, man. Right? Like you can go out there and make it your best year yet if you want to. It's your choice. And I hope that you choose to do so. Truly appreciate you guys. Truly appreciate our support. Keep crushing, keep kicking ass. I will see you next time. Peace.